G'day folks, Connor here from CW's Tech Reviews, back with another video, and today we're doing my full review of the Nokia 8.1. So without further ado, hit the like button and the subscribe button and let's get stuck into my video. Let's go. Alright, so the first thing we're going to cover off on is the specs. Now the Nokia 8.1 has a pretty cool looking camera setup. You've got a 12 and 13 megapixel rear facing cameras with optical image stabilization, and on the front you have a 20 megapixel front facing camera. You have a Snapdragon 710, an Adreno 616, Android 9, 64 gigs of storage and 4 gigs of RAM, glass front and back with an aluminium frame, and an IPS LCD display. And the display is 1080 by 2280 and comes in at 409 for the PPI. Now with the specs out of the way, we're going to have a look at the build and design. Now like I just said when I was covering the specs, we have glass front and back, and you've got to admit that that looks pretty snazzy. Now this is the steel color, comes in with a copper ring around the outside and glass on the back. A nice little camera hump there, which did make me a little bit paranoid to begin with, but I think it is really well designed. It's nice and comfortable to hold, it's a good size. Now I personally think phones are too big these days. I prefer the smaller devices, and although this isn't the smallest, it is a good size and a good fit, and it's really easy to hold. No sharp edges. That aluminium frame gives it a nice sturdy feel. Front and back glass is nice and cold. It's a well designed device. I just wish they put a nice little cheap case in the box, because I had to order one off Amazon and I was walking around with this for about 4 days paranoid that I was going to drop it. Now it is a bit of a fingerprint magnet, but most phones are these days. You have your headphone jack on the top, USB Type-C on the bottom, your microphone and your bottom firing speakers as well. Next I want to cover off on the performance, and I am quite impressed with the performance of the Snapdragon 710. I would say that it is fluid, hassle-free and consistent. Now it's not blazingly fast, and I definitely do notice a difference between this and say something like my Galaxy Note 9 or an iPhone XS. However, this is consistent. It works. You press the app opens. You do some gaming and it does gaming just fine. For day-to-day use, I do not have a problem with it whatsoever. And I would say that it is slightly optimized for battery over performance. Now I have no evidence to back this up, it's just the way it feels when I'm using it. I get massive battery life out of it, but it's just not as snappy as what I think it could be. So all in all, the performance of the Nokia 8.1 is really good. I'm really happy with it. And the performance sort of ties into the software. And this is a fairly simple part of my review. No fuss, no mucking around, no BS. You've just got stock Android on here. It's part of the Android 1 program, so you're going to get timely updates as well. However, at the time of filming this, it's about the 22nd of April, and I'm still on the March security update, so that's something to consider. It's not going to be the fastest at releasing them, but it is going to be up there and in amongst the top 2 to 3 manufacturers. There are some weird quirks with the software on this device, like there's no option on some of these phones to enable the bezel or the notch. And there's a link here to my video on how to reveal the notch if you don't have it baked into your settings. Now, some people have it, some don't. I don't know why. Another thing that I do find weird is there's just some basic stuff like swiping down on the home screen to reveal your notifications or your quick panel. And I don't know why it isn't built into the software. However, it is on the fingerprint scanner, so you can swipe down on the scanner and it'll pull down your notifications panel or your quick panel. And I must say, I think it's not fully optimized. I do notice that there's little hiccups here and there, and I think that's just part of Nokia still being quite young in the game. When you've got phones like Motorola, they feel a lot more optimized. Now I have been using Nova Launcher, and that's not because I need to, but just as a preference. I do prefer Nova Launcher. However, the stock launcher is fine on the Nokia 8.1. Now, battery life. I really don't need to talk about battery life. You're going to get 2 days battery, full stop. I'll go into a little bit more about it. I use this phone as my daily driver. I watch YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, Netflix, camera, video, emails, text messages, phone calls, play music and podcasts for 2 hours a day, and I always get to the end of the day with about 50% left of battery, so I could easily get 2 days. Now my lifestyle doesn't require that. I mean, I plug it in for Android Auto. That takes me an hour to get to work. I plug it in for an hour to get home, plugged into Android Auto while it's charging as well. And I also plug it in when I go to bed at night. So there's no real issue for me when it comes to charging, and I only need a device to last one day. If I'm not near a charger, I don't have to panic. I know it's going to get me through. Now, one day I went to bed and it was down to about 20% battery, and that was because I flogged the camera for about an hour and a half during that day. Now, that would run any other phone pretty much flat, especially my Galaxy Note 9, but for the Nokia 8.1, it still left me with 20% at the end of the day of a huge day of camera video. I can't speak highly enough about the Nokia 8.1 and its battery. Now I'm going to talk about the camera, and this is something we're always interested in. This is the most watched part of any review, is about the camera, because we all walk around with our phones all day taking photos of everything and anything, and we all think we're the next best photographer on the planet. This is something I will say with every phone review when it comes to the camera. In good light, it takes great photos, and as you'll see through some of these samples, it's a little bit oversaturated, yet dynamic range is good, the contrast is good, and I'm overall really happy with the image in really good light. As you can see, it really takes a shining to taking photos of flowers, and those macro shots it's really good at. Again, I think the dynamic range is really good for the price of this phone. You've got to remember what price we're talking about here. $500 in Australia, which is about 350 US dollars. Not sure about the euros, but that's a really cheap device. Yet this camera, I think, is punching above its weight. Just a quick tip, when you're using the camera, make sure you have your screen brightness turned all the way up. I didn't for the first day and a half when using the camera, and I thought it was producing really dull images. And then once I turned the brightness up, I was really shocked at how pleasant the images looked. Then we get to low light. Now, low light pics and vids are pretty mushy and pretty crappy. And as you can see, there's some photos here of me in a cave during the daylight, but you can still see that I'm in the cave, and you can see the dark areas. It's pretty grainy and pretty mushy. Same with the video, front facing and rear facing. In low light, it's just pretty bad, and I really wouldn't say that it's something to write home about. Now, it does have that Ozo sound, but that's really nothing. I mean, the sound might be okay, but the image that you get in low light is pretty poor. Now, you can work with it. If your subject is still and you've got a tripod, you're going to get an okay shot. You can use Pro Mode. However, if your subject is moving and you don't have steady hands, you're going to get a blurry shot. So that's something to consider. But also, again, we're talking about a $500 device. Now, the front-facing camera is different. 20 megapixels. It should be sharp, it should be clear, it should be crisp. It's not. And this is a fine example of how megapixels really don't count. Megapixels give you detail, but it's what you do with that detail that counts. And unfortunately, the Nokia 8.1 doesn't do anything with that front-facing camera. The pictures are way over sharpened, and if you have a little bit of light in the image as well, you just get lens flares going left, right, and center, and just taking over the image, as you can see from these shots. And look at this front-facing video. This is the low-light front-facing camera Nokia 8.1. Looks pretty smudgy. That is not something I'd be happy showing people. That looks terrible, and Nokia, you need some work to do on that. And this is something I find with Nokia. They kick butt in certain areas, and then in other areas they really drop the ball. Last but not least is gaming and multimedia. For me, gaming has been fine on this. I've been playing Asphalt 8, PUBG, Leo's Fortune, and a few other random games, and it has not struggled with any of them. And PUBG was even automatically set to high graphics. And it didn't really stutter or have any problems with it whatsoever. So you are going to get some good gaming experiences with this. Now, are you going to get a more full-on experience with another device? Yes, because you're probably going to get front-facing speakers and 120 Hz refresh rate and all that sort of crap. You don't have all those bells and whistles with the Nokia 8.1, but you do get a pleasant gaming experience, and you're not left wanting or wishing you had more. Now, for watching content, I don't have a problem with it whatsoever with the Nokia 8.1 and its display and how it presents media to me. YouTube, Netflix, Vimeo, Red Bull TV, all those applications work fine with it, and I don't think you'd be disappointed. So the Nokia 8.1 really is average or above average in most of the areas that I've covered today, and I think it really is a good buy and it is worth your money. For me, the pros are gaming, performance and battery life, and the cons are the front camera, the software nuances and the video quality. And they're the three things that I would say aren't that good, but the good far outweighs the bad with the Nokia 8.1. So that's it for my review of a Nokia 8.1. I really hope you did enjoy the video. I hope you enjoyed my honesty on the product. Don't forget, if you want to pick one up, there's links down below, and I appreciate you stopping by, and I will catch you in the next video. Check ya.